You know the feeling I'm talking about. You hang up the phone and you just sit there for a second. Not sad exactly, not angry. Just empty. Like something got taken from you, but you cannot point to what it was. And the confusing part is, this is someone you care about. Someone who is going through a hard time. Someone who needs you. So you feel guilty even noticing how tired you are. You tell yourself it is fine. You tell yourself, this is just what love looks like sometimes. Here is why that is dangerous. The most effective kind of harm does not announce itself. It does not show up with sharp edges and cruel words. It shows up looking like someone who simply cannot survive without you. And that is how it gets inside. Because there is this thing that happens after you spend time with them. A particular kind of tired that sleep does not fix. You replay the conversation on the drive home, and you realize the whole thing was about them. Every time you tried to bring something up, somehow the conversation found its way back. And you let it, because honestly, their stuff always seemed more urgent, more fragile, more on fire. You became the person who checks in, who remembers, who holds the weight of the relationship in their hands, because putting it down feels like walking away from someone who cannot hold it themselves. And here is the part that makes it hard to talk about. They are not mean to you. They are not cruel. Half the time they tell you you are the only person who understands them, that you are the one who keeps them going. And that feels like something. That feels like mattering. But it is not mattering. It is being consumed. And the reason you cannot see it is because the consumption wears the mask of desperation, not aggression. Evil that looks like need does not have to force you to stay. It just has to make leaving feel like abandonment. So you stay in it. You answer at midnight. You cancel plans. You shrink your own needs to a manageable size because theirs are always right there, taking up all the air in the room. That feeling has a name, and it has a shape. And what you have been calling love might be something else entirely. It always starts the same way. There is someone in your life who feels like they need you, really need you, in a way that most people do not. Maybe they came to you in a rough stretch. Maybe they opened up faster than most people do, told you things that felt like trust, like you had been chosen to hold something fragile and important. And that felt good. Of course it did. It is supposed to. The early part is warm. You feel useful. You feel close to them in a way that has weight to it, because this is not small talk. This is someone letting you in. And there is a pull to that. Something in you rises to meet it. Then, gradually, so gradually you will not be able to name the moment it shifted, the warmth starts costing more than it gives back. You begin to notice that the hard times never quite resolve. Every time things seem to stabilize, something new surfaces. Another crisis, another conversation that goes for hours, another version of the same wound that never seems to heal no matter how much you show up for it. You start rearranging your own life around their emotional weather, canceling things, staying on the phone longer than you had, choosing your words carefully so nothing sets off a difficult night. And you tell yourself, that is just what caring looks like, that this is what loyalty is. But there is this low-grade exhaustion that starts following you around. Not the tired that comes from a hard day, something quieter than that. A kind of flatness that sleep does not touch. The relationship has a shape by this point, even if you have not seen it yet. They struggle, you stabilize, they destabilize again, you stabilize again, you pour in, and the level does not rise. And the strangest part is that they often seem to genuinely need you. There is real feeling there, real pain. So you stay. Because leaving feels like abandoning someone who is drowning. What you do not see yet is that the drowning is the constant, not a phase, not a rough stretch that your love can fix. But right now, you are just tired in a way you cannot quite explain to anyone else, because from the outside, the relationship looks like you helping someone you care about. And is not that a good thing to do? That question is where most people stay stuck for a long time. Here's the thing that makes this so hard to see coming. We have been taught our whole lives that danger has a certain look, It is cold. It is aggressive. It raises its voice. It pushes. So we learn to watch for that. We learn to notice when someone makes us feel small or scared. We get pretty good at recognizing that version. But this is not that version. This person does not push you away. They pull you in. They do not make you feel threatened. They make you feel needed. And needed is one of the most powerful feelings a human being can experience. Being needed activates something ancient in us. Something that says you matter, you are useful, you are the one person who gets it. That feeling is not weakness. It is one of the deepest parts of being human. The problem is that it can be worn like a costume. When someone comes to you with their pain, their chaos, their history, their endless bad luck, the way everyone has always misunderstood them, your system does not register threat. It registers opportunity. Opportunity to help, to be the exception, to be the person who actually shows up. And so you do. Of course you do. That is not a flaw. That is you being exactly who you were raised to be. What is happening underneath, though, is something your nervous system has no language for. Because vulnerability is not dangerous in your experience. Vulnerability is intimacy. It is the thing that means someone trusts you, that you are close, that this is real. So when someone leads with it, sometimes almost immediately, sometimes in waves, always at the exact moment you might pull back, it does not trip any wires. It just feels like connection. And that is the gap this kind of harm lives in. The gap between what it looks like and what it is. It does not look like someone taking from you. It looks like someone who has nothing left to give. It does not look like control. It looks like someone who has never been in control of anything. It does not look like you are being maneuvered. It looks like you finally found someone who really needs another person, and you happen to be that person. The cruelty of it, and I use that word carefully, is that your instincts are working perfectly. You see someone struggling. You move toward them. That is not you being foolish. That is you being human in the most straightforward way possible. What you do not have a reflex for is the possibility that the struggle is the story, that the need is the mechanism. Not because every suffering person is dangerous, they are not even close, but because some people have learned somewhere along the way that leading with pain is the fastest way to make sure you stay. That is what makes it invisible. It looks exactly like what you would want to help. So let us talk about what this actually looks like up close, because once you can name the moves, you stop feeling like you are losing your mind. The first one is the crisis that never ends. There is always something. A job situation, a family member, a health scare, an old wound that just reopened. And every time things start to stabilize, something new comes up. You never quite get to the part where they are okay, where they do not need you, where there is room for what you are going through. The crises are real enough that you cannot dismiss them. But if you zoom out and look at the last 6 months, a year, 2 years, there is no horizon. It just keeps going. That is not bad luck. That is a structure. The second thing is how your needs get handled, not ignored. That would be easier to see. They get redirected. You start to share something, and within a few sentences, you are somehow talking about them again. Or you get a response so fragile, so wounded, that you end up comforting them for the fact that you brought something up. You learn, over time, to stop bringing things up. Not because anyone told you to, because the emotional math stopped adding up, and you made peace with it in ways you did not even notice you were doing. Third is what I would call the loyalty tax. There's a version of you they believe in, need, hold on to, and that version of you would never leave, never pull back, never prioritize yourself. When you try to, the atmosphere changes. You do not always get anger. Sometimes you get sadness. Sometimes you get that particular silence that makes you feel like you have done something cruel. The message is not delivered out loud. It is delivered through the shift in temperature. And it works because you are someone who pays attention to other people's pain. So you walk it back. You apologize for having a limit. The fourth behavior is the score that only runs one direction. They remember every time you were not there, every moment you fell short, every time you were busy or tired or just human. Those get cataloged. But the 1,000 times you showed up, the 2 a.m. phone calls, the plans you canceled, the things you swallowed, those disappear into what is expected. Love became a debt you are always behind on. And because you care, because you genuinely want to be good to this person, you keep trying to get current. You never get current. And the fifth thing, this one is the hardest to see while you are in it, is that your perception starts to feel unreliable. You notice something. A pattern, a moment that felt off, and when you try to name it, you come out of the conversation somehow apologizing, not because they called you a liar exactly, but because they were hurt that you would think that, because you know how hard things have been for them, because you know they did not mean it that way. Enough of those conversations, and you stop trusting your own read on things. You start filtering every observation through whether it is fair to them before you even let yourself finish thinking it. None of these, on their own, looks like something you would walk away from. Each one has an explanation. Each one can be traced back to their pain, their history, their hard year. That is the whole thing. The mechanism is invisible because it runs through your compassion. It uses the best of you as the place to hide. And here is the part that does not get talked about enough. Everyone says these relationships are exhausting. That is the word people land on, exhausted, like you just need a good night's sleep and you will be back to yourself. But that is not what actually happens, is it? You sleep, you take the break, you get some distance, and something is still off. Because it is not just your energy they take, that would be survivable. Energy comes back. What actually goes is harder to replace. It starts with the small things. You stop trusting your first reaction to stuff. You have a gut feeling about something, and immediately, before you have even finished the thought, a voice in your head starts pulling it apart. Are you being fair? Are you overreacting? You always do this. Except that voice did not used to be that loud. And if you are honest, it sounds a lot like them. That is the thing nobody warns you about. You do not just lose time or peace or sleep. You slowly lose the ability to trust yourself as a reliable witness to your own life. And then it goes deeper than that. You start misreading situations that have nothing to do with them. A friend takes a day to respond to a text, and your whole nervous system fires up. Your boss says something neutral, and you spend the afternoon turning it over, searching for the thread inside it. You have been trained, not in any dramatic way, just slowly, through 1,000 small corrections, to expect that reality is different from what it first appears. That your read on things is probably wrong. That you need more information before you can trust what you are feeling. That is an erosion. That is identity leaving through a crack you did not know was open. And here is the one that hurts most to say out loud. A lot of people who have been through this come out the other side not knowing what they actually want anymore. Not just what they want from a relationship, what they want from a Tuesday. What kind of music they like. Whether they are actually happy or whether they have just gotten good at performing fine. They were so focused for so long on tracking the other person's moods, managing their reactions, keeping things from escalating, that their own inner life went quiet. Not because they are broken, because they were busy surviving. This is what that kind of relationship actually costs. Not just the time you spent in it, the version of yourself you were before you learned to shrink, the instincts you stopped listening to, because listening to them kept causing problems. The confidence that your perception of reality was basically accurate. That is not just exhaustion. That is something closer to losing your footing, and most people do not even realize it happened until they are standing in some ordinary moment and they genuinely do not know what they think about it. And here is the thing that almost nobody says out loud. You are not slow. You are not weak. You are not someone who just could not see what was right in front of them. The fact that it took you so long to name it, that is not a flaw in you. That was the whole system working exactly as designed. These relationships do not come with warning labels. They come with someone who seems to need you, Someone who looks at you like you are the first person who has ever really understood them. And we are not built to be suspicious of that. We are built to move toward it. So when things started feeling wrong, when you would walk away from a conversation more tired than when you started, when you would catch yourself editing yourself before you even spoke, when you would lie awake at night trying to figure out what you did, your brain was doing exactly what it was supposed to do. It was looking for the logical explanation. It was trying to make sense of something that did not add up. But here's why it could not. You were using a fair set of rules to understand a game that was not being played fairly. You assumed that because they seemed to hurt, they could hurt for you too. You assumed that because you felt guilty when you let them down, they felt something similar when they let you down. That is not naivety. That is just what it looks like to have a conscience, and it made you the perfect person to be confused by someone who did not. The grief underneath all of this is real. Grief for the version of them you believed in. Grief for the time. Grief for the person you were before you started shrinking yourself to fit around their needs. That loss deserves to be named, not just as damage, but as evidence that you cared genuinely in a situation that did not give genuine care back. You were not crazy. You were not imagining it. You were just the only one in the room trying to make it real. Here is the part nobody wants to say out loud, and I'm only saying it because I think you are ready to hear it. You did not just stumble into this. Some part of you held the door open, not because you are weak, not because you are broken, but because something you learned a long time ago told you that this feeling of being needed, of being the one person who really sees someone, of holding another person together, that this was what love was supposed to feel like, that it was your job, maybe even your worth. And so when someone showed up exhausted and complicated and a little bit lost, something in you did not run. It leaned in, because somewhere underneath it all, there was a quiet belief that if you could just be patient enough, understanding enough, present enough, you could earn something. Safety, closeness, proof that you matter. That belief is not a flaw. It came from somewhere real. It probably kept you close to people who needed you when you were young, and that closeness felt like love. So your nervous system filed it away as love. And now it is the lens you look through without even knowing you are wearing it. But here's why this matters, and this is the only reason I am bringing it up, because the person who hurt you does not hold the key to your freedom. You do. The moment you see the part you played, not the harm they caused, but the door you kept unlocking, that is the moment this stops being something that happens to you and starts being something you can actually change. You cannot go back and fix what they did, but you can learn to notice when your body relaxes into the familiar shape of being needed and ask yourself whether that feeling is love or just an old habit wearing love's clothes. That question is not punishment. It is the first real power you have had in this whole story. Because every time you have blamed yourself for not seeing it sooner, you were looking in the wrong direction. The question was never, what is wrong with me? The question is what convinced me that carrying someone else was the price of belonging. So here's the thing about getting out. It is not a confrontation. It is not a speech. It is not even a decision you make once, and it is done. It is 100 small moments where you choose yourself instead. You stop explaining. You stop trying to make them understand. You stop waiting for the conversation that finally resolves it. That conversation is never coming. And somewhere underneath all the hoping, you already know that. What you are actually doing when you start to come back to yourself is learning to trust the feeling again. The one that said something was wrong long before you had words for it. You got good at talking yourself out of that feeling. Getting out means talking yourself back into it. It looks quiet from the outside. You start noticing when you feel lighter and when you feel heavy. You start letting that matter. You stop performing fine when you are not. You give your tiredness the respect of listening to it instead of pushing through it. And what you are protecting, this is the part worth sitting with, is not just your energy. It is your read on reality, your ability to know what is real, what is yours, what you actually want. That is what was slowly being handed over. That is what you get back. You are protecting the version of you that existed before you started shrinking to make room for someone else's needs. That person is still there. A little quieter than before, maybe a little more careful, but there. The relationship you are building your way back to is not with the right person out there somewhere. It is with yourself. That is where this ends. That is where you begin again.